Have you ever felt lost? There's this really wonderful children's book. It's called The Boy, the Horse, the Mole, and the Fox. And there's this portion of the story, interesting quote, where the boy and the horse are in the forest together. And the boy is really distraught and he says, I can't see a way through. And the horse says, well, do you see the first step ahead of you? And the boy says, yes. And he says, well, just do that. And I would say that is a really great way to get clarity in spaces if you are feeling lost or you're feeling overwhelmed. But the reason why I shared this quote wasn't so much for the clarity, but more so who gave that guidance. You need guidance all throughout life, and for us, sometimes we have a parent, we could have a friend, a guide. Nowadays we have like TikTok reels. They all really come under the umbrella of a format of mentorship. And that is our subject for today is mentorship. But in the capacity is that you can have so many different mentors or guides come into your life, but it also affects the pathways and the different decisions that you choose to make over the course of your life. And we're going to get into that. But not just that, how to choose the right one. So guys, welcome. Welcome to Alia & Co., the podcast, where we talk about complex things and we break them down and we make them simple. I am your host, Alia Kizilbash. And today I'm just honored to have this guest with us today. He is a restaurateur. He is a mentor. He's a mentee, mentor. He's done everything. He is a martial arts expert. And he's a cancer survivor. Today we have Jason Chan. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah,
completely honored. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I mean, we've had some talks beforehand. Truly enlightening. There are a lot of experiences that you've had in your life, and I think that first off, let's just start at the very beginning because I think those experiences are very formative. Your parents are from Korea. They were immigrants. There were so many different kinds of institutions and spaces that you were exposed to, Korean church, you grew up Buddhist, but then you went to Methodist, Baptist churches, and, you've had a slew of experiences. So do you feel like that felt like a gift, or was it like maybe I'm not sure where I belong?
I think, well, certainly now in retrospect, most things in life are a gift, and they're usually gifts of learning and a lesson. I was exposed to a panoply of religious beliefs and religions, and being born to Shinto and Buddhist parents was my first indoctrination into religion, although it wasn't enforced on me, or I wasn't asked or brought to be observed in our religion, because at the time in 1966, there weren't many places that my mother, who is South Korean, and my stepfather, who she married when I was 5, was from Hong Kong. So neither one of them really had a place to worship their religion. But I was always with babysitters, and my first babysitters took me to a Baptist Methodist church. And then later on in life, in my young adult life, when I was a teenager, my parents insisted that we fit in with the rest of the American Korean community in Chicago and go to a Presbyterian church. I think it armed me to be a critical thinker. Exposing me to multi-religions also exposed me to multi-cultures. Mm-hmm. And from that, I was really able to absorb everything. And then even at a young age, be a critical thinker for myself and say, well, I really love the music and the food involved with the Baptist church. And I like the donuts and the orange juice with the Presbyterian church, and the Catholic church, not so much.
No, but that's actually, I just find that there's a massive component of culture, rituals, items that really do create more of a holistic experience within that experience. I just kind of want to just step into the shoes of the very beginning of what is it like to be Buddhist? What are practices? I think that there's an aspect of someone who's raised in a religion and then they kind of push it away a little bit. And then there are people that find it on their own. Are there lessons that you found, or these are things that you saw that, that still you carry with you? Or is it something that you were pulling from each different kind of experience?
Well, oddly enough, like I said, from the germination of my first exposure to religion, Buddhism and Shintoism really wasn't so much a religion as it was a belief system and a way of life, um, more than a faith or a practiced religion. And coming full circle till now, it connects with the belief system that I'm most connected with now. But I would have to say in all religions, the most popular being Christianity. One of the main tenets of Buddhism, which my parents certainly told me, was just to be kind to everyone, to always, um, eh, not in a negative way, but always suffer for the sake of others, and you never kill anything and never harm anything. With that, my parents were both very strong uh, believers in being kind to everyone, but not taking shit from anyone, which means they set boundaries based on their kindness.
Yeah. I think that that's a really interesting concept, specifically when it comes to culture and immigrant families. A lot of times, there are a lot of feelings and ways of thinking that are valued in those areas, but not so much when you come to the US, right? The aspect of shame or guilt or, people pleasing for the greater society, right? Like if you're thinking about Korean church, being able to, these are people from your culture, right? You have to make sure that you're behaving a certain way. Did you find that was a difference in each specific space that you went to?
Well, people pleasing was a big thing that you just said, because my parents coming from Asia and immigrating here went right into the people pleasing business. So they opened they worked in restaurants and nightclubs, various ones, until I was about 8 years old. And then it carved out their own path of entrepreneurship, and they bought an Irish pub, a Jewish deli, and a Greek coffee shop. And they just spoke the universal language of hospitality, which is people pleasing. Because there was a language barrier and a cultural divide, hospitality is universal language, so is food and beverage. Mm-hmm. So they learned, and again, on the other side of the coin, my parents really learned a lot about geographically the culture of Chicago through the diversity of food. I mean, they owned a Jewish deli and a Greek coffee shop and an Irish pub.
Right.
So they really learned three sets of working class people and three geopolitical areas and three different types of cultures and nationalities. Chicago is a nationality of all nationalities. So it was really a great, connecting with the people pleasing aspect of it is what really, really championed everything they did after that.
Yeah. No, that's definitely the case. I think that it's wonderful that they were able to create an extension. There's an alignment there, right? Because you're
Absolutely.
coming from, and I would say a lot of Eastern cultures, they pride themselves on the hospitality and, just being able to take care of guests. And it's a moment of pride for them. So to be able to kind of find that alignment within a space, I'm sure it became more comfortable for them. I mean, being able to be coming to a new country. So
well, I think, again, going along with just the generality of being kind to everyone and not harming any living creature. The next level was people pleasing. And then above that was nurturing people. Mm-hmm. And that's all the restaurant business is really about. And that's, I think, why I chose that as my career path, because everything starts with a seed and a thought. And my parents were just surviving and doing the best they could. So with what they had, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, but they did have this inherent sense of nurturing people, food, hospitality, how to take care of strangers.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to mentorship, because I mean, I'm sure that you've had so many different guides. I know you mentioned your babysitter and just being able to kind of, that's a fun experience as someone, so young, you said 4 or 5 years old that you were experiencing this new experience. And I'm sure that that is somebody that was a very prominent person in your life. Your parents, I'm sure, when did you first realize, because, as we've spoken, there's a course of so many different mentors that you've had in your life, bringing so much good to and value to you, when did you first realize that, hey, this person is seeing something in me that I have not seen myself?
To be honest, it was literally my stepfather. He married my mother when I was 5, and every moment after that, my stepfather did only one thing every day. He only did one thing, and that was encourage me.
Mm.
My first mentor was my stepfather because you think about it, he was what we call today a bonus dad, and I'm certainly regurgitating everything that I absorbed from him. And that was, okay, this is not my biological child. So therefore, he sacrificed all his own desires to have his own child. He never did. He just he made a promise to my mother that my mother actually refused to marry him when he asked. And she said, well, I'm not going to marry you because you're going to want to have your own children. He's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, that's not going to work for me because if I have a child with you, then you're going to treat my son differently. And so you think about the sacrifice, you think about the selflessness and the compromise. My first mentor was my stepfather because he always encouraged me. He never pushed me. He always pulled, but it was a very subtle pull. He always encouraged me every single day. It didn't matter what I would do. And it goes beyond saying, hey, you'll be great at whatever you set your mind to. I remember when I graduated 8th grade, he wrote me a letter, and it was 18 points of a belief system that he had used my entire life up until I graduated 8th grade. And I looked at it and I was like, how profound that my stepfather, who never had a child of his own with my mother, just treated me as his own, made the ultimate mentor sacrifice to just make his entire life all about securing safety, love, and protection for me.
Yeah.
Right after that, I went into high school. My second mentor was a senior. I made the varsity gymnastics team my freshman year,
Oh, wow.
and I lettered my first year, and I was obsessed with gymnastics. And that's when I really first realized our true mentor was the mentee placing themselves in an environment with someone that you looked up to. Literally, he was taller than me. He was a senior. I was a 5'1" freshman, 135 pounds. And I saw this superhuman gymnast, and I followed his diet. I followed his, he got good grades. I had to get good grades. And that was my second mentor. And then from then on, it went on to be people that I worked with in the industry, chefs that I'd worked for. And then ultimately, when I was 21, I met my current life mentor of almost 40 years, 39 years, George Millman. He opened the first sushi restaurant in LA. He basically brought sushi to North America. He was the executive producer and of the movie and the play Hair in the 70s. He was Timothy Leary's attorney. He was the president of Mattel Toys. He was the general manager of the Roxy in New York and in LA. And he also did so many other things. He managed the all-female band Heart.
Okay.
So at a very young age, I asked this person that was my best friend's father, who I lived with actually, what's the secret to success? And he's like, well, life or business? And it was a test. And I said, well, both. And he's like, that's right. And, he taught me something. It was all about positive energy and only surrounding yourself with people that you want to absorb and learn from, that have something to offer, and to stay away from people that have everything to lose. Because most times the person that has everything to lose will definitely try to attach themselves or be close to someone who has everything to lose.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, though, for someone so young, in that space, how does for somebody like that's listening out here, how do you figure out who that is? Because, there's a certain amount of intuition that some people have a great sense of that, and some people don't, do you think in your mind a way that you were able to troubleshoot who's good for you and who's not? Because people present themselves in so many different ways. It's nuanced. Is there a trick or something that you noticed over time?
I think for me, at a very young age, I guess because my parents were so strict and I was I mean, I was really sheltered and sequestered, and I got beaten up a lot until third grade. I went from Hyde Park, 5300 South on the south side, to 5400 North, to an so I went polar opposite ends of the spectrum. I went from the south side to an all African American neighborhood to an all white Irish Catholic neighborhood in the middle of third grade when I was 8 years old. And that taught me a lot about life. And what it taught me the most is that fear causes self-belief. I was always afraid, getting beaten up every day. When I moved to the new neighborhood, the first day, a bully who had failed third grade twice,
Ugh, that's not a good.
picked me up and slammed me on the concrete, knocked me out. Long story short, I really realized that, okay, there's no one here to save me. There's no one here that's going to rescue me. It's all self-belief. And I stood up for the first time. I think I might have actually snapped. But it's funny because what I've learned at a very young age is that adversity usually stimulates, or stress stimulates, growth.
Mhm.
And for me, I had to grow up real fast. So moving to the new neighborhood, completely different environment. When you're in a new environment, you have to develop coping skills. And then after that, we kept moving around because my parents were entrepreneurs and kept buying restaurants. So with every neighborhood that I moved into in Chicago, there was a new gang. There was a new street gang just for that neighborhood. And back then in from 1966 to the late 70s, when we were moving around the neighborhoods in Chicago, there was a lot of racism. I mean, even more so than there is now, because specifically for me, I was never exposed to racism when I lived on the South Side. I was getting beaten up for my lunchbox or food or my clothes or gym shoes or whatever. It wasn't until I moved into an all-white Irish Catholic Caucasian neighborhood that I first heard the racial slur "chink," and I had never
Even heard it.
And when he said it, I didn't even know what it was, and I was like, "This can't be good." And I said, "Well, now I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to defend myself
Yes, not
because
gonna happen.
obviously that word was not a good word." So I digress. I think moving around all those neighborhoods really, again, armed me with a lot of coping mechanisms that is life experience. And at such a young age, I was able to identify right away um, who I need to seek out. That was someone iconic, someone to look up to, someone for advice, someone who had mastered uh, what their field of work. And it started with, my stepfather being my first mentor. He had mastered compromise and unconditional love. And that's the basis of a mentor. Second was the gymnastics captain of the team that was, a senior when I was a freshman. Seeing him master this and getting a scholarship into college, and it made me a critical thinker and said, this is who I want to be like. And then after that, meeting at 21, my life mentor, and seeing him have all this financial and personal success. He had the first Range Rover in Chicago that had a cell phone and a fax machine in it.
How big was the cell phone?
he lived in this giant loft in Old Town, and he was the man. He was a big Jewish guy with bald hair and a ponytail, but he had the most beautiful girlfriends. And he taught me all about fine dining and sushi. And he was a bon vivant impresario and just this celebrity. And, that set my next level up. And then after that, I would literally have to say it was my martial arts teacher. I learned martial arts at a very young age and had many teachers, but when I was 28 years old, I met my current martial arts teacher, who I've been with for 35 years, and very famous, so many accolades. I realized at a very young age that mastering one thing sets up the protocols and template for everything else you want to pursue in life. So I use what I learned and mastered in martial arts, not only um, as a life path. It's set up the DNA and the schematic for everything else that I try to do in life.
For with martial arts, and I'd love just from someone my perspective, I don't know a whole lot. I've my son, he was in karate, whatnot, but one thing I did observe is that there's a level of discipline from day one that you need to respect the space. You have to walk in a certain format. There are certain things that are expected of you. It's not just the physical aspect, but then also the aspect of respect, and it's very mental, emotional to some degree. And I know that you've had that's a lot of time to be, in that space. Um, Martial arts, if you could break down, is it a specific genre of martial arts? Are you practicing a lot of different? Because I know you have a lot of experience
Sure.
in this field. So
As a young man fighting in the street, or Chicago being the dojo,
yeah,
the streets, you learn how to defend yourself. There's no process to it. You learn to fight dirty, which is my handle on Instagram.
yeah.
Because in the street, there's no rules. It's very dangerous. You cannot be strategic. You have to be tactile. You have to just react. And a lot of times you have to hit first and ask questions later. I learned that on the south side of Chicago and the north side of Chicago. Martial arts is, it took me about 10, 15 years, an epiphany happened, and it was like a whisper and it snapped in my brain. All the physical aspects that you do. I started out with Taekwondo, Hapkido, Shaolin Chuan Fa, which is basically Kung Fu, but it's specifically Chinese boxing,
Mm.
uh, and Judo. And then I went to a tournament and saw Shidokan, which I currently teach and have been practicing for the last 35 years, is the most like reality fighting. It is in competition. We were the very first martial art on pay-per-view, ESPN and HBO. Matter of fact, the first 10 years of UFC, it was owned by the Gracie family, and it was the same dozen fighters. Ken Shamrock, um, uh, these groups of Dan Severn, this small group of MMA, now what's called MMA. They flew to Chicago every year to watch our tournaments and buy it on pay-per-view. It set up the DNA for UFC. And the way it is that the first 3 rounds you're in a karate gi, and it's bare knuckle karate, no pads. Then after 3 rounds, you take off your gi, you have tie shorts on, you put on gloves, and it's 3 rounds of Muay Thai.
Okay.
And then after that, you take the boxing gloves off and you put on your jujitsu gloves, and then it's all jujitsu. So much like the real world, every fight in the real world starts out, you take 1 or 2 swings at each other, and then you wound up rolling around on the ground. So this forced you to strike and be strategic, and it's knockdown. It's knockdown and hit right away with impact and striking, and then you finish it up with jujitsu if you have to.
Okay.
So it's the most like street fighting, and the most amazing thing about getting to answering your question directly. Martial arts, after 10 to 15 years, somewhere in between there, I realized all the physicality was the process to develop everything here and here. Meaning, what is martial arts about? Whether it's karate, boxing, jujitsu, judo, any of them. Self-discipline, self-respect, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-defense. You're learning about your limits, your limitations, but more importantly, what aren't your limits. Because physically you realize that just like your brain, you only use 10% of your body because you're only using 10% of your brain. Once you conquer your mind, then you control your body. So then if you're now using 20% of your brain, that means you can now, your body has 10 more percent because you're only using 10% of your brain, and you're only using 10% of what you're actually physically able to do. So you try to work on that other 90, 80%, and that's how you do it. You make savage your body to civilize your soul.
Interesting. Okay, so I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
first off, I know you started young with martial arts, and at first you're just learning the motions of it. But when did you actually start kicking ass? Like I feel like when it like when what was there had to be a moment of epiphany where there was a bully, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna and you did.
I've told this story so many times in many interviews and the podcasts that I've done. It was two pinnacle moments, and they happened within a week of each other. I was I in Hyde Park. It was the middle of third grade. It was January. I was walking home, and three kids jumped out. I had what was now called cargo pants, or pants with pockets on it. So they beat me up and took my pants,
What?
and then they sprayed me with a fire extinguisher.
Oh, okay.
So I walked into the house, and I got no pants. I'm
Mhm.
crying. I'm covered in pink foam. It's pink because my nose is
Oh,
bleeding, and my lip is bleeding, and my ear is bleeding. And my mom's like, we have to move out of this neighborhood. They were working and employees, and that's when they decided to go into ownership. And for them, the same thing. I saw through example that they took adversity and stress and a real bad uh, a bad situation, and it ignited them to become entrepreneurs and say, let's move out of this neighborhood. Let's risk it all and buy an Irish pub in an all white neighborhood. Did it solve all their problems in mine? No, but it was a new level for them to move to. The first week, the first day, I get beaten up and I snap, and I literally, without any training at all, but having it up to here psychologically, I snapped. And when the kid knocked me out the first day of school, he was on top of me, and he said, "I run this school, you fucking chink." And all the other kids are now chanting, "Fight, fight, fight."
right, of course.
Chink, chink.
Right.
Right. And I'm traumatized. I don't even know what to. And I think at that moment, I kind of snapped, and I grabbed him, and I call it the Christmas Story moment when Ralphie goes berserk on the
Yeah.
building. And I'm crying. I'm still traumatized. I'm very emotional. I'm crying. I've got snot coming out of my nose. I'm crying. I'm foaming at the
The
mouth.
same
And
things.
I obliterate this guy, and the teacher comes out and kicks me off of him. And then I'm sent to the principal's office the first day. As luck would have it, 3 to 5 days later, my cousins from Korea were moving to Ohio, and they stopped in Chicago to stay with me and my family. And my cousins were in 8th grade and 6th grade. I was in 3rd grade. And I had told them that I got in this fight and I had gotten in trouble. And my cousins showed me 3 things that they had learned on the streets of Korea, but also studying Taekwondo. And they're the 3 things that I still use today, despite all the things I've learned. Um, I settled into what I learned at a very young age that my cousins taught me. And that was my first foray into martial arts. My cousins teaching me these 3
Moves.
techniques.
Okay.
And I, at that point, was always defending myself and successful. And then I wanted to like most people, I said, I've been fighting in the streets of Chicago, and right around my junior year of high school, I decided to secretly go to a martial arts class, which was Hapkido and Taekwondo. And I did that for 5 years, and then took some judo classes as well. And then when I turned right around 28 years old is when I went to a tournament. I couldn't afford to watch it on pay-per-views, so they had a tournament in Chicago, and I went with my kung fu teacher and my Hapkido teacher, and both of these guys are like, "This is the most insane competition tournament we've ever seen." And the next day, I joined the dojo, and I've been there ever since.
I love it.
That's very long-winded. I'll
No,
try to
no,
keep
it's
these
no, not at all.
answers short.
And as many times as you would ever tell this story, it would be very highly interesting because, so can you just tell us what the 3 moves are so we can, if we need to do it,
Absolutely.
it might open up a can of worms and maybe you'll see us at the dojo.
It's attacking the eyes
Okay.
first, because in the street, you don't want to have a sense of, am I going to blind this person? Am I going to get sued? If you get to the point where you feel like your safety is at threat, For me now at 60 years old, it's my child, my employees, or my life partner. Me, I don't. I, someone can say anything they want and pull a knife and give me your wallet. I'll give it to them.
Mhm.
If someone threatens my life, get in the car,
Mhm.
or threaten my family. Um, Same thing. If it's things, you give them to whoever wants the
Yeah.
things. If they say get into this car, get into the trunk, then you fight.
Yeah.
And martial arts aside, something bad's going to happen. That's why they want you to get in the car or the trunk or somewhere else. So I'm sorry, I wandered and
No,
forgot the question. Oh, the
yes.
3 moves: attack the eyes, attack the throat,
Hmm.
and then genitalia,
Okay.
male and female.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Most nerve
Yeah.
centers in the entire physiology of a human being is your eyes, your throat, and your genitals.
Okay. So, from a female perspective, the way that I have heard how you should fight is you first take off your earrings and go up your theirs. Yank off somebody's earring first, and they're like, "What?" So that's one. But I think that it's like a focal point. There are certain focal points that you have to go after. So
Sure.
interesting. So now the other portion of the question, specifically, also, I mean, under the guise, this is mentorship. I mean, you joining these dojos, being able to learn then even the aspect of opening up that 10% of the brain that you use to now include more. I mean, how does that even happen? Is this something that is like the elevated level of discipline? How does one get to that point?
Well, I think most recently in the last 10 years, I realized that I think as as you become an adult, no matter who you are, you have a responsibility to yourself to be great. It could be at anything. For me, it was martial arts and restaurants,
Mhm.
hospitality, food
Mhm.
and beverage. But then that applies to everything else you do in life. And for me, I realized again at a very young age that I owe it to myself. I owe it to my family and my parents. Their expectations of me culturally.
Mhm.
They wanted me to be a doctor,
Mhm.
or a pharmacist,
Mhm.
or a
Engineer.
dentist,
Okay.
right? And that for me wasn't my path. It broke my parents' heart, but then they've seen me thrive at what I'm doing now. So
Mhm.
um, I'm pretty okay with the life decision that I made.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And that's the thing is though, there's so many ways to succeed in everything. If you have a passion for something, there's always a way to be able to find new avenues to create success. So I definitely believe that. Um, I would say, so you have had this journey of all of these different mentors. The discipline of martial arts is, was there a point that you can pinpoint in your life where you were like, I need more. I'm at this place because I know that you are really like that whole somatic experience and spirituality and like that kind of yearning for more in terms of maybe the metaphysical. How is that something that has also kind of now come into your life?
It's everybody has their own journey. For me, it's been the last 3 years in particular. Um, the last 3 years, I decided to take a journey inward. I've done all this physical activity and martial arts and gymnastics, and everything that I do is very, very physical. And over the last 3 to 5 years, I focused on somatic nerve therapy with a mental health specialist. I went to a neural mapping place, and I do neural feedback every week. I really journeyed into connecting with something that was for me on my spiritual side, which is uh, Huna, which is a Hawaiian Polynesian belief system.
Mm.
It's very similar to Buddhism,
Mhm.
very simple. But for me, my journey has been inward. Um, I was never really all I was ever in my mind in charge of was myself and my mom and dad
Mm.
and my direct family. Now that I'm getting married in January and I have a stepson and I have in-laws, and it's changed the whole paradigm of my life where again, I it's up to me and it's my responsibility to be as great as I can be. So I'm doing all the work internally to become spiritually and mentally more of a elevated person. Um, but there was one thing that happened a year ago. I put myself to a test and did a thing called 75 hard.
Oh gosh.
And
Yeah.
it was me and three of my friends, four of my friends, and only two of us wound up completing it. And it was a game changer for me because it's a life disruption and self discipline
Mhm.
challenge. It's not a diet challenge. It's not a physical challenge. It's not a hydration challenge.
Mhm.
But what it does is it rearranges what you think is a priority. I did another thing called a happiness agenda.
Mhm.
During COVID, a very famous and well-known restaurateur named Kevin Bain um, did a did a speech, and he posted the clip on Instagram. It was only 16 seconds long. I would have to say this was the most incredible thing that happened to me. Um, I Googled happiness agenda, and there's some things on there that resonated with me. I said, I'm just going to call Kevin and talk to him. And I talked to him, and it was an amazing thing. It was just about focusing on making an agenda for your own happiness. He was going through a lot of things during COVID, as we all did, and it really enriched his life. He's written a book. He's got 40 restaurants that he's opened in the last 25 years. He's highly successful, and now he's going through the same change. Same with another person that's one of my peers, one of my best friends, also a mentor and an inspiration for me, Curtis Duffy. He just launched his book a week ago. He's on a book tour right now. He was my student in martial arts. And no, he was the only other person that completed the 75 hard with me.
Mhm.
I couldn't do the other two phases. He did. And now, since we both finished 75 hard, he's written a book.
Mhm.
He taught himself how to play the bass. He's starting two more brands for his hospitality empire. And he just completed his first triathlon.
Yeah. So that's amazing.
So he took what I stopped doing last year, and it inspired me that I'm not doing enough. And what one man can do, another can do. And I love it because now he's completely surpassed me in the physical space. He started out as my student, and now he's earned his Shodan, which is his black belt. And now he's taken it to the next level, which is being a triathlete and running a hospitality empire and learning, teaching himself how to play bass and writing a book.
Yeah.
And there's a docuseries that's going to be coming out about his life. So these are all things that now he in turn has become my mentor and my inspiration to be the best version of myself.
It seems like it's all a very neurochemical sort of uh, process. So I had a friend, and she basically every year would give up one thing she loved, which is such a strange. So if it was like Coke, or if it was something that was like a food or a certain practice or something like that, and every year, as hard as it was, I mean, even I think even one year, internet, that's extreme, but like
Yeah.
she was doing all of these really. And so I recently met up with her, and her kids had left and stuff like that, and she wasn't getting along with her husband. They got a divorce. And I asked her, I'm like, was it hard? Like, how did you acclimate? That's a difficult thing to be with someone for so long and then just kind of give it up. And then she's like, no, it wasn't. And the thing is, though, every year she was giving up something. So I think it's just like how your brain is primed to handle these things, and which is a testament. And I know with the somatic therapy that you're also doing, it's very physical.
It is.
And the more you learn, you realize how it's so interconnected. Like, is that something that you've seen?
Yes, I went through EDMR therapy. I'm currently going through the somatic therapist, and like I said, the neural feedback. But I think it's also part of life that as you get older, you actually subtract. When you're young, you want to add nice apartment, new car, new clothes, new gym shoes, like new whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you're older, you're like, let's just start subtracting, and that's certainly where I'm at because I'm trying to just like a sculpture. you chip away at all the stuff that you don't need to get the finished product.
Yeah. So where are you now? Because I know that you are mentoring. You had your experience with cancer. Tell us about that. And also, because you were mentioning that the way that you got through was the fact that you had someone that was also within that experience, having the similar experience that you're kind of going through these adversities. I mean, talk to me about that. Like, I'd love to know more.
Yeah, what is a mentor? It's a guide. It's someone who's successfully conquered one aspect of their life or maybe their entire life, and that's why they're a mentor. I the moment I got cancer, the first person when I was diagnosed, I called a friend of mine who's a restaurant architect, and he was the architect at one of my restaurants, and he had the same cancer as Lance Armstrong, testicular, colon, and I believe stomach or brain, and he beat it. And so the first, I needed a cancer mentor. I needed someone who had successfully beaten three types of cancer, conquered it, and was thriving. And so I reached out to him, and because that's always been my process. Like you want to find the best person in whatever field they've mastered. So that was cancer was probably the biggest lesson of my life. It was the best, worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I learned obviously many things about myself, about what I was able to control and what I was not able to control. Um, since then, and my mentorship really kicked into high gear. I was always a mentor in martial arts, which is, a sensei in karate and Japanese martial arts, or a sifu in Chinese, just means guide. It doesn't mean teacher. It's just someone that of knowledge and respect that guides you. You ultimately, and that's the thing about martial arts and everything you do, you teach yourself. Someone shows you how to do it, but then you ultimately wind up actually teaching yourself. Just like a teacher or professor, they have the same textbook that thousands of students have. It's the same textbook, but that teacher is being a guide and saying, here's the curriculum, here's the way we study, here's the way we do the homework. And then you ultimately, it's 99% of it is you
Mm-hmm.
teaching yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, once I conquered cancer and the long battle that I went through, as life would have it, I had a very famous now pastry chef who is 19 and the granddaughter of my mentor's best friend. My mentor approached me at his birthday party and said, hey, this girl, Vivica Rexchafen, is moving to Chicago to go to the French pastry school in Chicago. Just like I mentored you and looked out for you when you were 21, will you mentor her? And that was me the moment I could pay it forward. Everything that my mentor had taught me and done for me, I was now going to be able to recycle and pay it forward with his best friend's granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
She lived with me for 6 months in Chicago, and she went on to become the pastry chef at Spago for Wolfgang Puck, Thomas Keller at Bouchon, and now is currently in Denmark, the head baker for the group that owns Noma, Geranium, and Heart Bakery. So part of my healing process after I beat my battle with cancer was immediately being able to focus some of my energy on encouraging and guiding this young 19-year-old pastry chef. Shortly after that, my best friend Curtis had reached out to me, who wasn't my friend at the time, but came to my restaurant. And then on a side note and personal note, asked me to start training him in martial arts. He also mentoring him in martial arts and then mentoring someone's career in food and beverage gave me the ability to kind of set the template and the path for me on my mentorship, because then I also said, well, who better to now mentor than people with stage 4 throat cancer that I was diagnosed with. So I reached out to Ironman's Angels, and I'm a mentor angel. This is a one-on-one cancer support group that links you with if someone has stage 1 breast cancer and they're an Asian female, they link you with a Asian female that's the same age, same stage, so that you now have a mentor to go to, because what is fear? Fear is the unknown. So if you have someone that made it through to the other side and successfully beat it and is cancer free for 10 years, now they can mentor you because they can answer all the questions that you're.
Right. And it's so many, there's not just the component of, okay, we're having this adversity, but the fact that you have certain experiences as a specific demographic, right? Like, as an Asian individual that has to deal with the culture and all of the things that are surrounding it. So I
Absolutely.
definitely think that. And then there's also that book, was it The Body Keeps Score,
Yeah.
which, the whole idea of one example of veterans that were together and they would talk about their experiences, they healed better because it's somebody that has had a similar experience. So, that's pretty amazing. So is it a big organization? How can somebody get involved?
It is. You can go to ironmansangels.com, and it's something that I'm a big advocate and spokesperson for obvious reasons. But now cancer's gone rampant. It's 2 out of 4 people get cancer now.
Yeah.
And it's it doesn't define me. But part of my healing process has been to help other people cope and become aware of everything that's involved with disease.
Right. So gleaning all of these amazing pieces of information and experiences that you've shared, I think it's just, you've had a lot of really cool people come into your life, provide so much different guidance. There's so many different sectors of places that you can look for someone to help you. For someone that is looking for a mentor, because before we were talking about, yeah, you can hire a coach. You kind of started giving me the example of how in martial arts you find a mentor. So is there some advice that you would give to someone out there that is looking for support? Because ultimately, I think that mentorship is support.
Sure. Well, we live in an age right now where everything's accessible on the internet. So whether you want to find a one-on-one mentor, whether you want to do it online through Zoom, or for me personally, it was always me seeking out, like I said, that person. And just like the mentees that reached out to me, it was that personal connection or referral through someone else that said, hey, you're going through cancer. This is someone you might want to speak to. It's a friend of mine. Or, hey, you're opening a restaurant. You're a young chef. I'm mentoring my chef right now. The reason he's my chef is because 2 years before I opened this restaurant, he had literally reached out to me on Instagram, and Instagram messaged me and said, you don't know me, but if you ever had the time, whether it was once a week, twice a week, or if you ever opened another restaurant as a manager or an owner, I would love for you to mentor me in my young career. And so literally, I think the grassroots route is the way I feel is the most effective and beneficial. I think two-dimensionally, something on a screen or on the internet or paying someone to be a life coach or a mentorship, when you make it equitable, to me, it doesn't seem like a true mentorship.
Right.
Of course, there's life coaches and mentors that are very fit, like Tony Robbins and all these, but that's when it specifically caters to like business. For me, I'm much like martial arts. I don't charge people to teach them martial arts. I think it's part of my responsibility to teach what I know. And I think that's how mentorship should be. My life partner and fiance, Heather, to a large extent, mentors the attorneys and the associates and the paralegals that work for her. She pays them, right? But she's also mentoring them and guiding their career on what to do. So I think the organic path is always, and holistic is always the best way to seek out someone. If you want to sell computers, then you find a person that you know or that someone knows in your family that is crushing the computer sales game,
Right.
and pick them apart.
Yeah. And I think it's also a matter of wanting to. If you're not going out there and doing it, then you probably don't want it bad enough. I mean, I think that there is a self-starterness to it, right? You have, like, they can give you advice, but if you're not taking it and creating like actionable change within your life, then, what's the point of it?
Attitude is everything. Unless you have the desire to learn. I mean, let's put it this way. What is change? What is life change? Everyone says, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and gain 10 pounds of muscle.
Mm.
That's what they want. How do you make the change? Well, the change is you just saying, let's do it. It has to happen. 99% of people say, well, let's lead up to this change. Let's train and let's diet and let's do some small calisthenics first, and then I'll make the change. No, the change is you telling yourself, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and then doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with finding a mentor. Mm-hmm. If you decide that you want to mentor someone or that you're looking for a mentor, the change has to happen within you, and you have to have the desire to do it and actually do it.
To want it bad enough, you think?
Absolutely.
And in your mind, the Jason Chan mind, that is, it's like, would you want something? Is there like do you hype yourself up? Is there something that happens in your mind where it's like the circuits are moving? It's like, this is what I'm going to do. All right, let's just cold turkey. This is what we're doing.
Well, everybody, a lot of people, I'm not a genius. It's what a lot of people have used. It's visualization. One of the tenets of Huna is that where your attention goes, grows. Meaning, if you focus on your partner, then your relationship will thrive. If you focus on watering this plant, then the plant will thrive. If you focus on yourself, happiness agenda, self-discipline, whatever it takes to make yourself, again, using responsibility that you have yourself to be greater, then that's what's going to blossom.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
When you are a mentor, you're helping someone else focus on themselves. And the analogy I use is being a mentor, you look at a mirror and you say, okay, I'm looking in the mirror. These are the specific things that I'm crushing and kicking right in the ass. Mm-hmm. And then I turn the mirror around and help the other person see the best parts of what they want, mm-hmm. and encourage that.
Yeah. And in some ways, I would say that as a mentor, you are imparting information to that individual, but at the same time, you're seeing how far you've come, being able to make the changes in your life. Would you say that that's something that you see too?
Absolutely. And the funniest thing, if I could define mentorship in one way, being a great mentor is this: success is making the right decisions. Making the right decisions is experience. What is experience? Making really wrong decisions.
Yep.
So it's a constant cycle. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I've been successful in the restaurant business because I've had so many failures. I'm a peaceful person now because it's been very tumultuous. Yeah. I'm happy now because at one time I was really sad. So it's the polar opposite, and you need your own path. But if you have a guide to help you with that path, just like your destiny, just like your fate, you can have a hand in which direction that it goes.
Right. So last question before we go. And I think leading, at least from your last statement, do you think we need to be failing more than should we be uncomfortable? I mean, it's just in the industry, martial arts, hearing about the experiences you had with getting beat up as a kid, or, moving around. Do you think adversity helped you get where you are?
I don't know if this is a family show, but I'm going to be very graphic.
It's not.
Absolutely. You have to fail. Look at Michael Jordan's most famous quote. He's missed 20,000 shots mm-hmm. to get to the point where he made every shot. Mm-hmm. Failure is such a big part of success. Matter of fact, you can ask anybody that's uber successful. Mm-hmm. Failure was the formula mm-hmm. for success. I have a story that I tell a lot of my mentees, and it's by a very famous rabbi, because I studied Judaism for a little bit. And this rabbi said that and it's on. You can find it on YouTube. And he's like, "Why do lobsters grow?" And this rabbi was sitting in a doctor's office. He read this article, and it was on how lobsters grow. And he's like, "This is an amazing fact of life and being a mentor." Lobsters are this crustacean that have a really tender, mushy shell that we all love with melted butter.
Mhm.
And they have this armor. They have this shell on the outside. And in order for them to grow, they have to shed this shell.
Mhm.
So what happens? They go hide under a rock. They shed their shell. They're very vulnerable. For 3-4 days, they have to stay in the dark. They can't eat. They can't they can't sustain themselves.
I had no
And
idea about this.
yes, and then the shell grows, and now they're a bigger lobster, and their armor grows even harder. And they have to constantly do this over their lifetime in order to grow and build this exterior armor. They have to be vulnerable, and but here's the thing: if lobsters went to somatic therapists or psychiatrists or EMDR therapists or ayahuasca, they would never grow. They would never really physically grow or internally grow because the doctor would give them a Percocet or a Xanax and they'd be okay. I'm like, well, I don't need to grow.
Right. We've solved your
I don't
problem.
need to be uncomfortable
Mm.
and be vulnerable and exposed to all this, the environment of getting eaten or getting killed. So what is the moral of the story as a mentor when I tell this story? The trigger for growth is adversity.
Mm.
So a lot of times it's the lobster has to tell itself, well, I want to be bigger. I want to grow a new shell. I want to get 2 sizes larger. And so that to me is a really great story that I tell all my mentees is that you literally have to change your environment and be exposed to vulnerability and adversity in order to stimulate growth. Nothing grows on a comfortable path. Nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing is that, yes, while we have all of the therapists and the somatic healers and, the psychedelics and all of that, you have to be uncomfortable, to get anywhere. Otherwise, you're just sitting there.
So
So,
one of the things my mentor did was introduce me to Timothy Leary, and not a lot of people know this. He was a Harvard psychology professor, and he also started the whole LSD movement.
okay.
But he also came up with the evolutionary rate. And the way you determine an evolutionary rate is that you take your age and you divide it by the amount of times you've moved. It could be you move from one house to a block away, from one apartment up to another floor, from one city to another city, from one state to another state. The more evolved you are is determined by the amount of times you expose yourself to a different environment. Because what happens in a different environment? You're safe. Think of a plant or people who live in one place their entire life. They're not very evolved because they've only been exposed to one environment. People who have been exposed to multi environments are highly evolved because they can change. To me, real success means you have the ability and you don't have the ego that says I can't change. Something's not working. I'm gonna change it. If I can't change it, usually my environment does.
Yeah, that's profound and truth. It's, I mean, especially even in some ways traveling, we can, get that, but the move is highly like I'm adapting my lifestyle now. So, I really like that's good wisdom. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Leaving off on that note, I think, it's very motivational.
Thank you.
So yeah, so thank you so
It was sincerely a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me and including me in this. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I'm honored.
Oh, thank you. As am I. So wonderful.